Hi guys, and welcome to Escape with Watch Reviews. My name is Steve, and today we're going to be reviewing the MMI Watches Turret 300 meter diver GMT. I received this watch for free. However, I don't get to keep the watch. I got to send it back, but you guys know the deal by now. It's not going to sway my review one way or another. And if by the end of this review you want to pick one of these up, I'll be leaving the link down in the video description. That'll take you right to the MMI Watches website where you can place your order. The full retail price for this watch is $469 US. That's on the bracelet, or $449 with a leather and rubber strap. This watch was just recently released. So they are offering a $50 off coupon, which is good until June 15th of 2024. After that time, you're going to be paying the full retail price for the watch. The watch comes in 3 different colorways, which you can see here. And like I mentioned, they do offer this on the bracelet or on a brown leather strap with a rubber strap included in the package. The watch case is made of 316L stainless steel. It has a sapphire crystal with AR coating, screw-down crown, screw-down case back, 300 meters of claimed water resistance, and the watch is powered by the Seiko NH34 automatic movement. And then you also do get a pretty nice watch roll in the packaging, so that's nice to see. So I'm getting some Seiko Samurai vibes with the case here, and I'm also getting a little bit of a Christopher Ward vibe off of the dial there, but it is also uniquely their own design. I really like how it looks, but is it a good watch and is it worth your money? Let's dig in and find out. But before we do, quick wrist check. Wearing the watch dives at WD16570. Yeah, still really liking this watch. Alright, so let's talk about the dimensions. We've got a bezel diameter of 40 millimeters, case thickness of 13.5 millimeters, got 22 millimeter lug width, got a lug tip to lug tip of 46.9 millimeters, and sized up for my 7.5 inch wrist. It weighs 177 grams. So this is a pretty chunky dive watch, 13.5 millimeters thick, which really isn't that bad, but because of the case design, it does look a little bit thicker. 22 millimeter strap as well, so the 177 grams, that's a pretty heavy watch. It's a little bit heavier than I personally like. But if you guys are into that kind of big sturdy dive watch, this thing is great. I like the way that it wears too. A pretty flat case, as you can see there, but it's super comfortable. So I've got no real major complaints with it. Even the bracelet is nice and keeps the head of the watch balanced out nicely. So yeah, I like the way that it wears. I'm going to go outside right now and throw it on my wrist for you. And here we are on my 7.5 inch wrist. And as you can see, it wears pretty nice. I got no real issues with it. It's not too long for me. A little bit of a flat case, like I mentioned, but I do feel like it sits nicely on the wrist. Very balanced with the bracelet as well. It's a big chunky watch, but if you're into that sort of thing, I think you're going to like the way that this thing wears. And here we are in some more direct lighting. You can see there a little bit of a washout, but it's really not that bad in person. I think there's enough AR coating on this crystal that it's not a big deal. Lots and lots of detail on the dial there. Hopefully you guys can see that. But yeah, I do like the way that this thing wears. It's very comfortable. Yeah, it's a big chunky watch, but I actually like it. So let's go throw this on some straps and we'll get back to this review. And here we are on just a black textured rubber strap, which again, I think is going to look pretty much good on any black dive watch. So no surprise that it looks good here. A little bit of a tight clearance between the case and the spring bars, but other than that, I think it looks really good. And here we are on a brown leather strap, 2-stitch strap. Leather on divers, I'm still a fan of them. I know some people aren't, but I like it, and I think that looks really, really good. This is actually lifted off of a St. Martin that I had recently, but yeah, so there's no link for this strap, but I think that looks really good. And here we are on an orange silicone single pass strap, 1 layer underneath there, so it's still sitting very nice. And I just like the way that this makes the orange accents on the dials kind of pop. Just a perfect summer combo in my opinion. I think that looks really cool. And lastly, here we are on a black and gray nylon strap. It's a pretty thick strap, and you can see 2 layers underneath the watch. It does sit up the watch kind of too high for my preferences, so this isn't the style that I would go with personally. If you got a thinner strap, I think it would be all right, but this thicker strap doesn't wear super well. It's just obviously very comfortable still, but and I do think that black and gray looks pretty good. But yeah, this isn't the strap that I picked for this one. Just thought I'd show it to you guys though. All right, let's go back inside. Let's get back to this review. All right, so let's talk about the case finishing on this. So case finishing is a mixture of brushed and polished surfaces. You can see here on the tops of the lugs there, you have a vertical brushing, really nice and consistent. Very happy with that. It's a pretty small area, but nicely done. You can see in between that surface and the lug openings, you do have a polished chamfer there. And then on the outside, you also have a polished chamfer separating the top and side surfaces. Everything is done pretty nice. These sharp transitions, they look great. The polishing, they look great. It's very subtle, but pretty nicely done. I don't really see any issues with that at all. There is maybe just a little bit of bleed over on this surface here that you can see, but really getting up this close, you're going to start seeing imperfections everywhere. Yeah, but getting up this close is not something you typically do, but it's just something I thought I'd mention. You can notice it that it's not as crisp as something like a San Martin. They do an excellent job with their sharp transitions. So yeah, it's not quite up to that par, but pretty nicely done either way. You can see the sides of the case here are a vertical brushing. Never been a fan of vertical brushing, but it's done pretty nicely, pretty consistent. There's not really a good sheen to it, like luster to it like I've seen on some brands, but still pretty nicely done. I don't know if that's a brushing effect or like a quality effect. I'm not really sure, but flipping it over to the crown side here, you have a 7mm screw down crown here, signed, and that signed logo there, that is loomed. So that's kind of a cool party trick. The crown guards here, they've got a little bit of polishing, but for the most part, they are brushed and nicely done. Vertical brushing again. Everything is done pretty nice. This bottom edge is nice and soft as well. So flipping it over to the case back here, screw down case back, circular brushing with a pretty cool engraving there. Just your typical spec sheet around the outside. Simple notches to get a tool in there. Pretty nicely done. You can see the bottom of the case is circular brushed as well. And again, everything here nice and soft and smooth. I got no real complaints with it at all. So for the most part, I think the case is done pretty nicely. It didn't blow me away. It's nothing super impressive, but it's also unoffensive as well. Now let's talk about the bezel on this thing. So the bezel itself, it's a stainless steel bezel, pretty nice teeth there, nice grip. It's a very short bezel, as you can see. So the grip on the bezel is not great. If you get it from the sides, it's fine. But the way I wear the watch, I'm trying to grip it up here, and there's just not a whole lot to grip against. So I do find that the grip could be a little bit bigger, but I think the resistance is actually pretty good for being such a small area to grip onto. I'm still able to turn the watch. It hasn't ever been knocked out of place or anything like that. So yeah, it's pretty nicely done in that regard. So you can see the insert is ceramic. It is a shiny ceramic, and you have nice engravings all the way around. First 20 minutes are fully graduated there. Everything else just simple markings. But nicely done. It's a small bezel. You can see the inner diameter of that bezel has a steel ring in it that is attached to the actual bezel insert, or it's part of the bezel, something like that. So it rotates with the watch. There's no markings on it, but you can definitely see that it does rotate with the watch. And that's kind of where I get a little bit of a Christopher Ward vibe. It is also fully loomed, so that's nice to see. The bezel action on this thing, it's a 120 click unidirectional bezel. First off, you can see the alignment spot on. There's zero play in this bezel. It's rock solid. I'll let you listen to the clicks here. So it's a kind of a deep thunking click, really, I guess, a high quality sounding click. I'm pretty happy with it. Like I said, resistance is pretty good for having this little grip on it. It's just, I would say it's maybe a little bit too tight. If you do grab it from the side, it's a little easier to turn, but yeah, that's my only real complaint with the bezel is that there's not enough grip on it in this area. Maybe that's because the bracelet comes up right to the bezel. I'm not really sure, but yeah, just something that I noticed. It's a little bit too difficult to get a grip on this thing. All right, so let's talk about the crystal. First things first, we'll test it for sapphire. This is positive for sapphire. So it's just a flat piece of sapphire crystal, 3mm thick apparently. There is anti-reflective coating on the underside. They don't say how many layers. I think they could use a little bit more, but it's a flat sapphire crystal, so even with zero AR coating on it, I think they're fine. I've got no real complaints with them. So the fact that they did include some AR coating is a good thing. It's not blue or anything like that. So yeah, I think it looks really good. All right, so let's talk about the dial on this thing. So the dial on this one, it is a black dial, and you can see, hopefully you can see, there's kind of a horizontal texture to it. I think it looks really good. There's a lot going on the dial, but still plenty legible in my opinion. So you have applied indices at all the hour markers, double batons at 12 and 6, single batons everywhere else. You have your printed MMI logo there in the middle. You got your GMT 300 meters down there at 6 o'clock with the orange. I think it all looks really good. The handset that they used, reaches right out to the minute track and reaches right out to the inside of those hour markers. So I'm really happy with the handset, really nicely done, fully polished and fully faceted. They look great. The second hand, I think, gets a little bit lost, and the fact that it's red kind of bothers me a little bit. They should have made that orange, in my opinion, or just left it fully polished. I also wish they would put some sort of a loomed dot on that somewhere, either on the counterbalance or out towards the end of it. It does get, like I said, it does get a little bit lost, but for the most part, I think it's done pretty nicely. I like the fact that they got it just the perfect length, that red there, the perfect length for that outer ring there. I think it looks pretty cool. Like I said, it's a pretty busy dial. As you can see on the outside here, you have a printed minute track around the outside with sub-seconds, and then you also have a printed 24-hour GMT hand that goes around the outside. You have a little orange accent there on the 24-hour track as well. I don't feel like it matches the rest of the orange. If they could get all that orange to match, it's just a little bit off for me. But besides that, I still think it looks really good. Really cool GMT hand here, as you can see, nice long tip on it there. So you're gonna get a good GMT reading as well. And the thing that I really like about this is the date window. It doesn't have a traditional date window. It has this date disc. So you have little cutouts at all of these numbers here, 1 through 31, and then you have a little orange disc that kind of spins around behind that and kind of highlights the date. So you can see here it's the 20th. I think that's a really cool touch. I like it a lot. And I also like that you can kind of see like the progress of the month. I saw this thing and I was like, holy crap, it's already 2/3 of the way through the month. So yeah, kind of interesting to see that. But yeah, I really like how they did it. It's nice and clean. I don't see any issues with the dial really. I think it's done pretty good. And the Lume on this thing, I'm going to pop up a Lume shot here. You can see it against a couple other watches in the collection. It actually does pretty good for being such a small application of Lume. They did a pretty good job on it. The bezel holds on decently. That is C3 Lume, and then the dial is BGW9, as you can tell. Yeah, I had no issues reading this in the middle of the night. I think the Lume is actually pretty decent on this watch. All right, so let's talk about the movement. So the movement is none other than the Seiko NH35 automatic GMT. I think at this price we're getting pretty close into the Miyota 9075 territory. This is pretty high up in price for an NH35. These movements are in watches that are $100. So yeah, they're great movements. I have zero issues with these movements themselves. They're 21,600 beats per hour. They hack, they hand wind, bidirectional winding rotor, independent GMT hand, independent quick set date. They're great movements. I have absolutely no complaints about them. I just think the price on this watch is a little bit too high for this movement personally. The movement, they are typically pretty accurate. Here's how this one is running. So this one's running pretty fast. I think this is a prototype, so I suspect that the production units are going to run a little bit better than this one. Typically, the NH35 runs at about 10 seconds fast a day. So yeah, I would expect that in the production units. The watch is operated by this 3 o'clock screw down crown here. So really smooth screw in and screw out action. The crown action on this watch is just buttery smooth. It's a lot better than any other watch that I've had with this movement. So I'm not really sure what kind of magic they did on it, but really nice. Hand winding, nice and smooth. Pulling it out to the first position. When you roll the crown backwards, this jumps your date, as you can see there. That's a really cool feature. I think it looks nice. Rolling it forward jumps your GMT hand. You get nice positive clicks right into place. So again, really happy with that. You're able to track 2 different time zones. So that's pretty nice to see. Pulling it out to the third position does hack the movement, like I said, and this is where you set your time. Again, everything is just nice and smooth. Nice positive clicks in the crown and nice smooth winding on that crown. I've got no complaints with the crown action on this thing. Got no complaints with the screw in, screw out action. It's really, really nicely done. All right, so let's talk about the bracelet on this thing. So the bracelet is 22 millimeters and it tapers down to 20 millimeters at the clasp. Solid links, solid end links, female pivot end links. You do have quick release spring bars, which is nice to see. You have nice big chunky screws to size this thing. I don't know how many links come in the box. This one kind of came sized to my wrist. So yeah, I'm not really sure how many links this has. I'm assuming it has about 2 more, but I really can't say for sure. But nicely done. The brushing on it is nice and satinized. Doesn't quite match up with the case there as far as the consistency of the brushing. And there's just a little bit of a gap here at the first link. That's really my only complaints with the bracelet. The bottom edge is nice and soft. The articulation of the links, really nice. It's an H-link bracelet. Again, fully solid. The end links fit in here pretty nicely. You can see they aren't moving or anything like that, but if you look close, you can actually see a gap in between the lugs and the bracelet. That's really my only complaint. It's not something I really notice on wrist or anything like that, but just something I wanted to make you guys aware of. There's just a tiny bit of a gap there. Female pivot end links, they pivot straight down, so no issues there. Working our way to the clasp, it's a pressed outer shell, but fully milled on the inside. You got a nice solid flip lock here, 2-button pushers, got a nice branding on the top there, fully brushed. Everything here is nice and soft and rounded off, so there's no sharp edges on the clasp at all. You have nice tight tolerances here and nice tight tolerances here, so this thing opens and closes just like you would expect. I've got no complaints with the functionality of the clasp. I'd like to see a little bit nicer of a clasp. A pressed outer shell is nothing special, especially at this price point. We're kind of getting to the point where we should be seeing something like a on-the-fly adjustable clasp, especially when we're creeping up towards $500. So, yeah, that's just something to know. Again, it's not a bad clasp. It's just, again, nothing special. As far as the bracelet itself goes, the tolerances on it, pretty nice. It's a pretty comfortable bracelet. Has a little bit of a jangle to it, a little bit of a rattle to it as well. So it's not the most solid feeling bracelet, but it is very comfortable on the wrist. I wore it all day the other day. I had zero issues with comfort. I think it was actually pretty nice for being such a heavy watch. I feel like a watch this weight, I have to button it down pretty tight, and even with it down pretty tight, it was overall very comfortable throughout the day. So no complaints with the comfort of the bracelet. I just think the quality of it, the brushing is not the best, and the tolerances are the tolerances aren't bad, but there's a little bit too much slop and a little bit too much rattle in that bracelet for me. Again, it's a pretty good bracelet. Just at this price, it could be a little bit better. So there you go, guys. That is the MMI Watches Turret 300 meter diver GMT. Overall, it's a pretty nice watch, I gotta say. I know I kind of bashed it throughout the review, but it's a nice watch. I think at the price that they're asking for it, close to 500 US dollars, it doesn't quite live up to that. You have little gaps in the bracelet here. The bracelet itself is nothing fancy, nothing special. The clasp is pretty bare bones and lackluster. The movement is also pretty bare bones and lackluster. That's a good movement. Uh, I just think at this price point, something should blow me away, and nothing really blew me away. You aren't getting the premium movement. You're not getting a premium crystal. You're not getting premium finishing. You're not getting a premium bracelet. Everything on this watch is good. I will say everything on this watch is good. Nothing is exceptional. So yeah, it's just kind of my thoughts on the whole watch. I like the way that it looks. A little bit too big, a little bit too chunky for me personally. If you're into that, I think you might like this watch. But yeah, I think you're paying a little bit for the looks of this thing. The quality just isn't quite up there with a $500 micro brand, in my opinion. That's just me. Thanks a lot for watching, guys, and I'll see you in the next one. See ya.